Hey everybody, thanks for checking back in. This week we are going to do another question and answer session. I reached out on Twitter twice actually to get some questions from readers. So let's just get this thing started. The first question and the third question actually both have to do with Phillip Irvin. Uh, Tim asked, do you see Phillip Irvin starting in AAA this year? What do you see his role with the Reds in the future? And then Michael asked, what does Phillip Irvin need to do to improve his contact skills at the plate? I'll kind of hit those both at the same time. Um, Phillip Irvin hit very well the year he was drafted by the Reds. He spent time in both Billings and Dayton, and I believe he hit something like 331. Don't hold me to that; I don't have the stats pulled up, but he hit very well. But he had a wrist injury at the end of the season that cost him the last couple of weeks of the year, and then he had surgery in the off season. He's never really hit for an average since. I don't think he's hit over 241 in the 3 years since that's happened. Last year at Double A, he hit 239. Now, where he did shine is he drew plenty of walks and got on base. His on base percentage was over 360. He showed a little bit of pop, 22 doubles, 13 home runs. There's definitely an all around skill set there outside of being able to hit for average. To kind of address what Tim asked, I think he's going to start in AAA. Um, his role in the future is definitely going to be something that I can address with Michael's question. Right now, Phillip Irvin, he's a very dead pull hitter. A lot of things that he hits are to, third base, shortstop, left field. It makes defenses much easier to set up to prevent him from getting hits. They can kind of shift everything a little bit towards that side of the field. Um, he's also a guy who historically has hit a lot of fly balls and pop-ups. Pop-ups have been a big thing for him. He's been right around 11-12% in his career, which is higher than an average player. And pop-ups go for outs nearly as often as strikeouts do. It's like 99.5% of the time a pop-up turns into an out. So not quite as high as a strikeout, but it's pretty much a guaranteed out. So cutting down on his amount of pop-ups is going to help. Now the problem with that is his swing does have some uppercut in it. It's been there for a while, and I mean that's one of the things that helps him, generate the power that he does have. But it kind of works against him in the batting average standpoint. He doesn't really have a strikeout problem, so I think that it's just going to be a slight adjustment that in his swing that would help him, stop getting under the ball. We're talking a fraction of an inch is the difference between a line drive and a pop up. But I think that's going to be something he's going to have to improve on if he's going to be more than, say, a fourth or fifth outfielder, where right now that's where he profiles best. Um, Guys that hit 240 in the minor leagues don't tend to come up to the major leagues and still hit, 240. Um, and that's basically what Phillip Irvin has done over the past couple of years. Now, what's interesting is that he had really weird home road splits last year. He hit over 280 on the road in Double A last year, whereas at home, I think he hit under 200 at home. So that's something that maybe you want to keep an eye on as the season progresses in Louisville this year, where he'll be, maybe getting into a different park that's not quite as hitter friendly, or as pitcher friendly as the park in Pensacola played last year is. If that's something that we're going to see, maybe the adjustment already happened and the ballpark hit it a little bit, because he did hit very well on the road. But if he's not going to hit for a better average than he has the past couple of seasons, he's going to be a backup outfielder. He can play all three positions. Off of the bench, he can provide you plenty of speed. He's going to hit for a little bit of power. He's going to give you a quality plate appearance. He does draw walks. He does make contact. It's just sometimes when he does make contact, you kind of have to worry about, is it quality contact as often as you'd like to see. Um, I think that probably gives a good answer for both of those questions on Phillip Irvin. So we'll go on to the next question. Jim Conley wants to know more about the case for the Reds to sign 19-year-old Cuban outfielder Luis Robert. He says that he looks like an elite talent and something that the system is lacking. I think that there's a few ways to look at this. Right now, Luis Robert is not eligible to sign. And if he is not eligible to sign before June 15th of this year, then the Reds have no chance to sign him because of the penalties that they'll have to face for going over their bonus limits in the most recent signing period. If Luis Robert is declared eligible to sign by Major League Baseball before that, the Reds will be eligible to sign him. And if they are, I do believe that they should go all in on him. I wrote about this on the website earlier this week. Basically, one scouting director said he's the best amateur player on the planet right now. It's going to take plenty of money to sign him. It wouldn't shock me if he got $10 to $15 million signing bonus to sign. And for the Reds, that means it would actually cost them $20 to $30 million because they're going to have to pay the full 100% tax on the overage. Now, at that price, everybody's going to have to pay a tax, but some teams will have to pay more because they've already spent all of their bonus pool money. Now, when it comes to the Reds specifically, I think that they should go even more all in than other teams would, just because they are banned from spending $300,000 or more on any player over the next two signing periods because of what they did in the 2016 signing period. So they're going to be very limited on who they can sign, and they're not going to be able to get any upper echelon talent, at least at the outset, when these guys are signing at 16-year-old out of, Venezuela, the Dominican Republic, other Latin American countries. So it's really their last chance to go out and get that big-time amateur player for several years. And then when they do come back, the rules have changed now. A team is not going to be able to just outspend everyone else. Everybody's pretty much stuck between $4.75 million and $5.25 million. There is no more, we'll just spend more and pay the penalties. Like that has been taken out of the collective bargaining agreement. Teams will not be allowed to do that. So realistically, this is the last chance for the Reds to really, go all in on a player that they really like. As of right now, it seems that the White Sox are the team that gets brought up most often with Luis Robert. It's still very early on, and as I said, he's not eligible. But if he does become eligible, he's exactly the kind of guy that the Reds need to go after. They're not going to have the opportunity to get a player of his caliber moving forward, at least on the international market. It's going to cost them a lot of money, but elite talent does cost that kind of money. Definitely someone who would benefit the farm system. He's an outfielder. Right now he can play center field. He might outgrow that position, but with the scouting reports that have been going around on him, he's going to be just fine. He gets to slide over to left or right field. So I think that it would be very beneficial for the Reds to be able to add that kind of talent if he does become available. At this point, though, no one knows when he's going to be, declared eligible to sign. So it may not even be an option for the Reds. But if it is, I definitely think it's something that they need to push hard to do. Andy wants to know what level are Tyler Stephenson and Chris Oakey going to start out at. I'd say that 95% sure that Tyler Stephenson's going to head back to Dayton. He's just going to be 20 years old this year, and he barely played there last year as he battled, the wrist injury, and then early on in the season he had the concussion that cost him a few weeks. I don't think they're going to send him anywhere else. Chris Oakey, I'd imagine, would be in Daytona, taking over the catching duties there. Probably getting a 70-30 split. With who, I'm not sure yet, but I think that those two are safe bets to go to those two levels. Go on to the next question. Adam wanted to know if there were any spring training tips for looking at minor league guys. Not really. Show up early. Games start at 1 o'clock local time, and there's two games going on at once. Double A and Triple A stay together, and then Advanced A and Low A stay together. So on certain days, one of those two groups will travel and they'll play on the road, but one of the groups will stay at home, and there'll be two games going on simultaneously. Sometimes there's a workout going on one of the other fields that'll have guys that are probably looking at playing in rookie ball this year. So it points you can see three different things going on at once. This is all in the back fields at the Goodyear complex. It's free to get into. Anybody can just walk right in and see anything going on. So they usually do workouts around 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. They'll take about an hour break or so, and then they'll come back out and they'll start preparing for the games. So really, I mean, that's it. Just know the schedule and show up a little bit early, and take in multiple baseball games. Let's see, what do we have next? Um, Vander wants to know who is the biggest name from every minor league team that you're most interested in seeing this coming year. Now, this is a tough question because I don't necessarily know where everyone is going to be, and I'm definitely just winging this answer. So it's certainly possible that I'm overlooking someone that stands out. But I'm just going to take a guess here. In AAA, I think that there's a few guys that I'm more interested in seeing, and with the way that the starting rotation is going to play out. It's March 2nd right now. We don't know who's going to wind up. With the two spots at the back end of the Reds rotation. If Cody Reed, Robert Stephenson, Amir Garrett wind up, one or two of them wind up in Louisville. Definitely those guys. I'm really interested to see what Sal Romano can do in AAA, assuming that he does wind up there. I think there's a very small outside chance he could make the Reds team out of spring training, but I do think that's unlikely. But with the way that he finished his second half last year, just absolutely dominating for Pensacola, he took strides forward with both his breaking ball and his changeup. Definitely a guy I'm interested to see how he performs at that next level. Seeing what Jesse Winker can do at AAA. That team's going to be stacked, at least early on, before the Reds start calling guys up. Moving down to AA, I think that Aristides Aquino is probably the guy that I want to see the most, that I feel is going to be there. He took big strides forward last year with his plate discipline, but AA is that level where guys that generally have struggled with plate discipline in the past, that's the biggest question mark for them, is if they can make that next jump to face guys that they have good breaking balls and they can locate them. Guys that have a better plan of how to attack hitters and keep them more off balance. While Aquino did make strides in that facet last year, I still think there's work to do and to be done there. So he's definitely the guy that I want to see. And mostly I'm less focusing on the kind of performance that he has, more looking at what kind of adjustments he makes at the plate when he faces that more advanced pitching. Obviously, the tools are there for him. It's just whether he's going to be able to get the most out of them, so to speak, because of the way that he adjusts his plate approach against these more advanced guys. In Advanced A, I think that Vladimir Gutierrez and Alfredo Rodriguez are the guys that I want to see there the most. I think that both of them are going to wind up in Daytona playing for the Tortugas. I've never seen either one of them in person so far. It's all just been video. I'll be heading out to spring training in, 17 days. I'll start my drive, so I'll be there in basically 3 weeks. I'll get to see them at the end of spring training. Really looking forward to it. I think that the big question is more so with Alfredo Rodriguez and how much he's going to hit. He's pretty much struggled to hit at every level he's ever played at, professionally at least. He didn't hit much in Cuba in the 1 year that he played at their highest level, and he didn't hit very well in the Dominican Summer League last year with the Reds. Granted, he played for basically 3.5 weeks with a 2-week break in between because he got hit by a pitch. So, don't put too much stock in that, but, even the scouting report questions whether he can hit enough. He definitely made some changes since he was in Cuba with the way that he goes about swinging. The mechanical changes hopefully can help him. He's gotten quite a bit bigger and stronger as well since that time. So, I kind of want to see what he can do over a longer period of time than he got last year with the Reds. It seems that they're more confident in his ability to hit than other people are. Granted, they've seen him more and they've been able to work with him, so that's understandable. But he's definitely the guy that I'm most interested in seeing. At the same time, Vladimir Gutierrez has stuff that's just tantalizing. He's going to be making the transition to starting pitcher, where he was a long reliever as a teenager in Cuba, which isn't really, something that's surprising. A lot of, teenagers do get used that way in Cuba because, they'll bring these guys up to play at the highest level at 17, 18 years old, when they're on the same staff with guys that are in their 30s. So, seniority definitely comes into play with guys there. But, being able to see what he can do, how the Reds limit him, so to speak, They're not going to throw him out there probably and let him throw 140 innings like they may let some other guys do, just given his background. But yeah, definitely something that I'd like to see with him is how the changeup is going to progress. I think that the fastball and slider definitely work well for him right now. So along with just kind of seeing what kind of numbers he can put up, seeing the progression of his third pitch throughout the season. In Dayton, definitely Tyler Stephenson. I don't think that he got a chance to really get things going last year, and the performance definitely showed that between the lack of playing time because of the injury, and then when he was playing injured, trying to come back. I just don't think that it really gave a good look, so to speak, for his true talent level. So hopefully he can be fully healthy this year and kind of show the things that made him the Reds' first round draft pick in 2015. And then as far as guys in rookie ball go, I really don't know. A lot of those guys are going to be coming from the draft, and we just don't know who they are yet. Let's see, we've got one last question. And let's see, we've been going for 16 minutes, so I'll try and keep it short, but if you guys noticed, I definitely ramble on a little bit when answering these questions, just trying to give the most thorough answers as I can. But Jason wants to know, what would it take for the Reds to have the highest ranked farm system going into the 2018 season? And he basically says, not graduating Nick Senzel and whatever else. I really don't think it's going to be possible. I think that it would be very surprising. Some places that rank farm systems still count Cody Reed, some places don't. But even the places that do count him, they're calling the Red system somewhere between, number 9 and number 14 in baseball, which personally I think 14 is an absolutely ridiculous place to rank the Red system. There's just way too much depth and potential upside, especially in the upper minor leagues, to rank them that low. But, then you've got, Cody Reed is definitely going to graduate no matter whether you count him or not. He needs, 3 more innings, I think, for the places that use innings instead of service time to qualify prospects. It wouldn't surprise me if Amir Garrett lost his prospect status. Jesse Winker is in the same boat. Robert Stevenson needs basically 3 starts to lose his. That right there is, 4 guys that are roughly top 100 prospects, depending on which list you want to look at. Losing that kind of talent is going to be very hard to overcome. Even if, Nick Senzel continues to do what he's done, Baseball America already ranks him as a top 10 prospect in baseball. So, while he could definitely get better and go up the list a little bit, going from number 9 to number 4 isn't really going to change things too much as far as his prospect value goes. They're going to have the number 2 overall pick again. That's definitely going to help. But that's not going to overcome losing 3 or 4 other top 100 prospect caliber guys. And this goes back to, one of the earlier questions. If somehow they could sign a guy like Luis Robert and add the 2nd overall pick, then you can kind of start to make the discussion that, they should be a top 10 team if they do lose those guys. But they're still going to have guys step up. Aristides Aquino having a big year this year would definitely help. Tyler Stephenson rebounding and having a big year would help. But I think that there's probably little to no chance they could be the top team unless something weird happens and the Reds just don't graduate a lot of the guys that I feel are going to graduate this year. And even with that, they're going to have some luck that a lot of their guys don't take any sort of step backwards, along with some guys taking step forward just to kind of get in that conversation. The Reds' rebuild it's weird in the sense that you can't look at their farm system rankings to judge where they're at. Not a lot of the guys, but some of the bigger players along the way in the rebuild aren't prospects anymore. Jose Peraza, he hit 324 in the big leagues last year, but he's not a prospect. Dilson Herrera, former top 100 prospect in baseball, doesn't qualify as a prospect anymore. If you really want to push things, you've got Brandon Finnegan. He's younger than Robert Stevenson. He's younger than Amir Garrett. But he's not a prospect. He's got too much big league time. But he's definitely a part of the rebuild, and he's been a part of that plan. It's just, he doesn't count as a prospect. So a lot of these values aren't being counted within the rebuild. So if that's the lens you're going to look at things through, as to the farm system rankings is showing how good or bad the rebuild is going. You probably don't want to do that with the way that the Reds situation is. But yeah, we just crossed the 20-minute mark, so I'm going to cut it off here. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully, it won't be another 8 or 9 days before we can do another video podcast here. They're not all going to be question and answers like this, but I do like this format, and I think that it is something I'm going to continue to do. It just may not be something that we do once a week. We may push it out to every other week, and especially once the season gets going, we'll have more things to talk about. But thanks for tuning in. If you're not subscribed here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, and you'll get updates whenever we publish, a new video, whether it's, one of these video podcasts or, once I get out to spring training, I'm going to be putting up a lot of videos of the games that are going on. So, that's going to be something that's going to be going on throughout the season. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely subscribe. It'll help things out. All right. See you guys later.